Hello and welcome back to Inside Update, a show brought to you by InsideInvestigator.org. We're a nonprofit newsroom where we investigate corruption. We roll it out to the people through investigative journalism. And today I'm joined by Mark Fitch and Catherine Revelo, two fantastic investigative reporters. As I watch that intro video play, I'm kind of reminded just how many stories we've put out this year and some of the great impact. This is not live. We are recording this on Christmas Eve because we are also about to head into a week off. We close down our newsroom between Christmas and New Year's, give everyone a chance to reset for the year ahead. We're going to talk about our two most recent investigations, one by Mark, one by Catherine. We're also going to talk about maybe the year in review and some of what we're looking forward to in 2026. But first, Mark, Catherine, how you doing today? Ready for Christmas?
I wouldn't say ready.
Yep, there.
It's good. Yeah, I feel like it's the last 48 hours that's really the sprint, all the pieces. Then all of a sudden you got the family mix thrown into the mix. It's just one thing after another. So I personally am very, very glad that we are in the last few hours here before this extended break. But I'm very glad to be talking to you two as well. And honestly, I was looking at these two investigations, and at one point in our schedule, I wasn't sure if we would do this episode. I wasn't sure if we would have the chance. And I kind of just swung it in the other direction where I was like, no, let's talk about both of them. They're both really good investigations. We are obviously on a limited time here in this show. So I want to jump right in and talk about target investment and trade secret. I want to talk about target investment first. It was just published earlier in the month, so we'll do this chronologically. Mark, can you give us just what the heck is going on with the DOH here? This one really raised a lot of eyebrows, and we've seen it in the comments as well since we hit publish.
Yeah, it has raised some eyebrows, and it's actually gotten a few more people reaching out to me with additional information, which I plan on following up with. I mean, the long and the short of it is, when we talk about corruption, there's true corruption, as in sliding bags of money to your, a contractor under a table at Capitol Grill. But then there's the appearance of corruption. And I think that's kind of what this story gets at. The long and the short of it is the Department of Housing Commissioner, Sheila Mascara-Bruno, has been awarding millions and millions and millions of dollars in extra funding to her previous employer, so that they can complete affordable housing projects. Meanwhile, denying similar consideration to other affordable housing developers. So, I went through, this is all kind of contained in a petition to the state by Dr. Harold Foley. He is an Atlanta-based affordable housing developer. He's done, I think, 4 projects in Connecticut. And he is petitioning the claims commissioner to sue the state of Connecticut for like $110 million because of disparate treatment by Department of Housing, and namely the commissioner, Sheila Mascara-Bruno, because his projects have been essentially, he claims, underfunded. He has been denied additional funding to help him mitigate some environmental costs. And he's even been kicked off a project because he was facing a legal situation with, having to do with one of his mortgages. At the same time, while all that was happening to him, the exact opposite was happening to Ms. Bruno's former employer, a organization known as the Mutual Housing Association of South Central Connecticut, also goes by the name NeighborWorks New Horizons. So in the affordable housing area, it appears to really depend on who you know. And if you know the woman who has, and I'll grant her this, she has very wide statutory authority to do pretty much whatever she wants. If you know her, you're going to be okay.
Fascinating. It is a really well-written article, and I was this is one that I think moved quickly, which is worth noting here as well. We got a tip, and I think we all looked at it pretty skeptically in the beginning because it did paint a fairly broad picture. We all kind of sat around the table and said, all right, we'll have the conversation. We'll see what this is, see if this is something. And, when you came back and you were like, oh yeah, we're gonna, we're going to be taking a closer look. I was really thrilled about that. I guess, the initial skepticism I think is always healthy to talk about. It's key to
Absolutely.
our job. But maybe this is helpful more broadly, like, what turned that in your mind, and then what do other people, potential tipsters, need to know about submitting good tips, kind of in that same vein?
Well, what turned it in my mind, I had a couple conversations with Dr. Foley, and first, determining that he's not delusional was, that's always a solid first step. Secondly was, I started looking at some term sheets. Now, when a developer gets funding from, there's two sources of funding really. There's the quasi-public Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, okay, and that the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority awards tax credits, federal tax credits that essentially get sold to private investors. So you get private money funding these affordable housing developments. And then they have what's called gap funding, which is awarded through the Department of Housing. So the Department of Housing will step in and say, hey, you guys can, we'll give you, $4 million in housing flex funding or something like that. And what's really interesting here is if you look at the guidance for both the Housing Finance Authority and the Department of Housing, it says that you can get up to $4 million for your project. Okay. And so that appears to be, it says a maximum. So someone like me would look at that and be like, all right, that's the most money you can get. But then over the course of term sheets that you get this term sheet saying, here's how much money you're getting. You're getting this much in tax credits, you're getting this much in DOH funding, blah, blah. And so I saw the original term sheets for projects being spearheaded by NeighborWorks New Horizons. And then I saw those term sheets get updated 3-4 times. And the numbers kept growing. They kept going up. They were beyond $4 million. And some of these projects, because Sheila Mascara Bruno, she was the former head, the executive director of NeighborWorks New Horizons. Some of these projects that she awarded extra funding to as commissioner are projects that she started. They were her projects at this affordable housing developer organization. So, I mean, that alone, when I saw all these updates and going well beyond the $4 million, that is quite clearly, enunciated in the documents. I was like, all right, that's something. The fact that it's her old employer is something. The fact that there's projects that she started is something. One of the biggest things that I found, and Dr. Foley wasn't even aware of this, is he was not only denied another project, but kicked off an existing project because I said before, he was in court with the mortgage holder for one of his projects. And yep. Department of Housing was like, well, you're being sued. You're out of compliance for not paying your bills. So you can't do any affordable housing projects. Out you go. All right. At the same time, NeighborWorks New Horizons had the almost exact same lawsuit pending with them. They got an extra $850,000 in housing flex funds for one of their projects and got fully funded $22 million in ARPA money for a project that they were spearheading that was actually denied by the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority because they didn't meet the competitive bidding the competitive requirements, and they were out of compliance. So the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority said, no, we're not going to finance this project. You're out of compliance. And Sheila Mascara Bruno, who is well aware because she is the chairman of the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, turns around and says, hey, you know what? Here's $22 million, even though you're in court for a mortgage that I signed to fully fund your project. I mean, and it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they fully funded the purchase of a former Holiday Inn in Bridgeport that was redeveloped by one of her favorite contractors. I mean, such her favorite contractor that she is quoted on the contractor's website saying how great he is. So he gets, we basically give the Connecticut Housing Partnership $22 million to buy this affordable housing project from, one of her favorite developers or one of her favorite contractors. So there's just a lot going on here. Extra funding was awarded to another, affordable housing association that is run by someone she used to work with, who was her real estate director while she was running NeighborWorks New Horizons. So there's a lot of lines to be drawn, and getting increased funding, getting updated term sheets based on from all the off the record conversations that I had is not that common a thing. And so to see it repeated over and over with the same organization involved, with the same connections involved, it really raised a lot of red flags for me. I thought it was worth pointing out.
Absolutely. I want to return to, I guess, some other stuff throughout the year in a little bit, but I want to first mention we obviously will have to see what happens. We've written about the claims commissioner in the past. That was an investigation called "Want to Sue the State? Get in line," because it really is a lengthy process. They're allowed to kick stuff out, so we'll see what happens with Dr. Foley. But that double standard, apparently, God, that definitely has me curious. Catherine, I'd love to talk to you about money that we just can't find out about as well. That is your most recent investigation. It's called Trade Secret: Why You Are Not Allowed to See Hell's Kitchen Film Tax Credit Application. Film tax credits, been a hot topic for a while now. Could you just bring us up to speed on what the heck these things are, and then why they are apparently a black box for us to take a look at?
Right. Yeah. So the state has a number of tax credits to incentivize, film and TV production companies to move to Connecticut and film in Connecticut for, various reasons. And to qualify, you have to do things like, have offices in the state and spend a certain amount of money. You have to film a certain number of production days in the state, all that type of thing. And then you're potentially eligible to receive what is a scaled tax break based off of how much you've spent or how much time you've spent in Connecticut, basically. And Hell's Kitchen, the Gordon Ramsay cooking competition reality show, I think has been a pretty high profile TV show that recently moved its production from California, where we all think of Hollywood and films and TV, to Connecticut, where it now films out of Foxwoods. And so, having this show on television and seeing them do things that involve, a lot of police and local fire departments, you kind of wonder, what's the cost to taxpayers for some of this stuff? So, we filed a FOIA request for their application for the tax credit, and was not expecting to get back documents, which took over a year for DECD to produce, that were just entirely blacked out, right? The actual budget for Hell's Kitchen that ITV America, which is the production company, had to submit to DECD in order to qualify for that credit is just completely blacked out. There is absolutely no information on it. I don't even know why they bothered to turn it over to us. And so what I came to find out is that even though Connecticut's trade secret law does not specifically include film and television production budget information in its definition of a trade secret, Connecticut's Freedom of Information Act actually goes farther than the trade secret law and does specifically include that information, which is significant because CUTSA, the trade secret law, doesn't override FOIA. So the fact that FOIA specifically says this information is exempt from disclosure is what means that taxpayers can't see this information and learn more granular detail about a tax credit program that the state is losing tens of millions of dollars on every year.
So why, I guess, was that created as an incentive to say, oh, come to Connecticut, we'll cover your back on this? Like it's obviously like a strategic thing that if your competitors don't know how much you're spending, you're somehow going to be in a better position, and that's an incentive. Like, why bother with this in the first place? And as my understanding, I think what you just said was Connecticut's the only place that does this. So what gives?
Yeah, correct. I mean, and that's something that I definitely tried to find out in the investigation. And if you look at actual trade secret laws, there are arguments like that about, things like film and TV scripts, not necessarily budgets, but, the more creative side of filmmaking, which I think you can understand. However, when we get to Connecticut's law and the specific amendment to FOIA to include that language, sort of nobody knows how this came to be. It was not in the original bill, which was about altering the tax credit programs. It was added as a floor amendment. There was no debate about it, no discussion about it. The FOIC has no record of having testified or anything about that expansion. So kind of nobody knows. Which again, this is a program that the state loses tens of millions of dollars on every year. So the fact that we don't know seems like it should be an area of concern.
If I could jump in one sec, I appreciate you doubling down on the fact that we do lose lots of money on these every year, because it's something, I've reported on in the past, and something that politicians stand up there and absolutely lie about in press conferences. They don't want to admit it. They'll tell you the exact opposite. But it's right there in black and white from the DECD itself. We lose money on these. They don't actually grow jobs. They don't actually do anything. And one thing I would like to ask you, Catherine, this show's being done on tribal lands, right?
Correct.
I guess I find that kind of odd. I mean, you're talking about a state tax credit going to a production on tribal lands at casinos that, I don't know, they probably make more money than the state of Connecticut. So did that factor in at all in your story?
That is a good point. It didn't factor in. One of the reasons it didn't is because from what I understand, is not all of the filming is actually done on location in Foxwoods. It's done on a separate soundstage, but some of it is. So I don't know to what extent that factors in. Again, because all this information is exempt from FOIA, we don't really know. But that, I think, is an excellent question. It would be something that's worth finding out. One other thing I want to add about this too is, again, right, California, the place that we all think of when we think of Hollywood and TV and film. Not only is Connecticut the only state in the nation that specifically exempts this stuff from Florida, but if you go to a state like California, which spends much more money on film tax credits than the state of Connecticut does, not only do you not have to submit a FOIA request to find that information out, you just have to go online to Connecticut's Film Commission, and all of that information is listed out in great detail.
Wow. California more transparent than us, huh?
On this issue, for sure.
Well, it seems like I know there's been some kerfuffle about Connecticut's marketing in this past week, right? The state's chief marketing officer is moving on to private industry. And, it makes me wonder, too, because Connecticut's clearly trying to position pizza capital of the world, basketball capital of the world, film industry. Like it's a lot of thin spreading here, and it is frustrating. I'm sure we certainly get the comments, the messages, the tips, just asking us to look into this kind of stuff. But and you bring it up right in here, right? That transparency is impossible to the very people who are footing the bill, and are not they're seeing a negative return on their money. That frustration seeps out. I think, we definitely see that in our newsroom. And, maybe that's another thing to take a look at, too, is what kind of pushback are they actually seeing, not just to legislators, but who else is asking these questions? I don't think many people are, but as soon as they start taking a look at this and they realize, hey, I wish I had an extra X number of dollars in my pocket. Why are we going this direction? We have a body of work now on insideinvestigator.org that really gets into not just the lobbying efforts, but the transparency, the history of this policy. I think Tricia had done an article about this. I think, Mark, you had written about some of the lobbying. Catherine now with the transparency piece. This is kind of a bonkers one to me. Anything else that, for those out there listening, like, Anything else that you want to know about this? I mean, is there even a way that a whistleblower could help us out on some of this stuff, just to pull back the curtain and show in real numbers so people can understand? Because I think ultimately that's the goal, right? You make your decision, but for the love of God, we want to actually show you what is happening so you can make an informed decision.
Well, I would like to know how it is that someone who created our pizza mascot, which, let's be honest, it is a disgusting looking white drippy slice of pizza with arms and legs or something like that. How that won any kind of award is beyond me. I mean, let's just I feel like nobody out there was willing to say it, but when I first saw that thing, I was like, that is a disgusting looking slice of pizza. I wouldn't go anywhere near it. And if that's what you want, like, Connecticut's pizza to be represented as, is just this like soggy, dripping, for some reason, white slice of pizza. I mean, God help us all.
Well,
The
you know,
good
we did
news
write
is,
about
Mark-
the
No,
Sorry, go ahead, Kath.
I was gonna say the good news is we have multiple FOIA requests out to DECD about that. Where probably the most ridiculous FOIA request I've had to write in my career is asking for information about Charlie the pizza mascot.
Is that what his name is? Charlie?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's, sorry folks, but I hate to be the one to rain on your holiday here, but that is just one nasty looking slice of pizza.
That's some nightmare fuel under your Christmas tree this year.
It
folks.
is.
That is horrifying. Do they have the
Right.
plushie toys? Because that's not one you actually want to go out and purchase. That's bad.
No, nothing makes you want to eat pizza like congealed cheese.
Exactly. I want to we have about 8 minutes left in this episode. I want to just kind of look back. I mean, this has been a cool year. You two have obviously played a key role in rolling out some really important investigations, and credit to our whole team on really, I think, turning over some leaves and uncovering some stuff that otherwise never would have seen the light of day along the way. I mean, we crossed over 50 awards, and despite being in business for 43 months, we got 70 million impressions of our stories. We have donors coming in. We got new people coming with tips, supporting. Like, we have this year in review thing coming out with some of my favorite investigations and topics from throughout the year. But if you were to direct people to one of your stories from the past year, something you wish that more people read, what would it be?
I don't know. Like, we had a lot of readers on some of these stories, but what I will point out are the ones that I thought were most important and will have long-reaching effects into the next year and are seriously, causing some trouble within the Lamont administration and is going to continue causing them trouble. For one, my story, we put it out back in January. It was called The Authority. It was about what Pura was doing wrong and what Marissa Gillette, the head of Pura, was doing wrong at the time. And Pura denied it, as hard as they could until they couldn't anymore and had to admit to everything in court. I relished that moment. Yes, you were doing everything wrong. Lamont walked into that scandal wide-eyed, eyes open. Anybody could have seen it coming from a mile away. He did nothing. The other thing is the Doug McCrory scandal. And
Yes.
It took me a year and a half to get those documents. I requested them back in like 2023 or something like that. And, I couldn't do anything with them until the story of the FBI subpoena broke. And then I was able to put it all together. This is a scandal that, it should be bigger. It should be national. This is a guy who directed over $3 million in state and federal funds to his girlfriend. And hey, you know what? Like, they're going to try to make some kind of play that this wasn't quote unquote illegal, but it was certainly unethical. I know that the Lamont administration knew about it and they did nothing. So I think
Flags were raised.
These are two things that are going to continue. The Pura problem is going to continue, and the McCrory thing is going to keep slowly unfolding. But, the shamelessness of some of these people is absolutely astounding.
Hey, that's why we're here. I have more thoughts on that. Those are two great ones. We'll make sure they're linked in the show notes. InsideInvestigator.org/the authority has all of the purest stuff, and InsideInvestigator.org/auspices of equity has the McCrory series there as well. Just so everything's in one place, easy to find, and you're not searching all over our website for all the different coverage. Catherine, same question to you. 2025, what do you got for us?
I think the investigation I want to draw the most attention to is Partial Record, which was the story that myself and Brandon Whiting worked on about investigations into sexual misconduct by faculty at CSCU and UConn, which has been, a long-going project of ours to document these kinds of things going on college campuses. And, we recently won two big cases at the FOIC where both schools were found to be in non-compliance with FOIA, with how they mishandled our request. Pretty much every issue that we raised, the FOIC ruled in our favor. They fined UConn over the way that they handled it. And those decisions are really significant because they're going to help us continue to peel back the layers, of what's going on, how these cases are happening. And I think, a pretty crucial element that we got into Partial Record is what happens to a lot of these faculty and professors after findings of misconduct and wrongdoing. And in a lot of cases, these people are still collecting public pensions. In some cases, they're still continuing to work at these universities. I think this is an issue that's not going away, that I know I don't want to let go of, and Connor, I know you don't want to let go of it. I don't think any of us want to. And so I would like to see it get more attention. I would like to see potentially the legislature address some of these issues. I know we talked about it at the time that this came out, that we were hearing behind the scenes that there wasn't necessarily any political will to do this because it would mean going up against the unions, which is never popular. But I think these are conversations that need to be continued to have and to continue to be investigated, and to make sure that this stuff isn't going on in a black box, particularly when we're running into issues with FOIA disclosure, so that, not only is there transparency about what's happening on college campuses, which are funded by public taxpayer dollars, but to make sure that this stuff isn't continuing to happen, and that there aren't more victims who need to come forward and tell their stories to us.
God, that was such a good thing. I'm going to clip that video and just put it out independently, because it summarizes so many important things that fall under the heading of horrible things that you are paying for, dear watcher, listener, reader. I'm so grateful for the work that you and Brandon did on that one. I know it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of time with the back and forth. I mean, this is one that, we were fought tooth and nail at every single step of this, as these school officials tried to, I would call it covering up sexual misconduct, 100%.
Yeah, and according to the FOIC rulings in both of these cases, for both of these schools, there are still thousands of pages of records that haven't been turned over to us. So fingers crossed we get those soon and we can write more about this.
It's nice to know that there's so many profiles in courage at our state legislature, where they are perfectly willing to allow a professor who makes $200,000 a year to be protected by a union so that they can continue canoodling with their students, what have you, doing all these things, getting caught, and then, hey, they just get to keep on doing what they're doing. So congratulations, folks.
Yep. Profiles in courage indeed. Speaking of courage, though, this team, guys, our reporting team, I am so thankful to be able to work with you. I'm so grateful for the work that you do. And also just frankly for putting your foot down when you see something that needs to be called out. Like, I know for those of you who don't know, our mission is to root out corruption through investigative journalism. Mark, Catherine, Brandon, Alex, day in and day out, this is what they do. They are not just, of course, taking in huge amounts of information, but they're doing the really difficult job of distilling it, translating it, and then putting it out in a way that is understandable and that you can use to live a better life. I mean, that's the goal here, right? Getting rid of corruption isn't just an abstract goal. It's what you can do in the absence of corruption that is really where things start to get exciting. I'm so excited for the year ahead. I'm so grateful for you both. To everyone out there, Thank you so much for tuning in, for subscribing, for sharing, for donating, for making this work possible at our nonprofit newsroom. We will be off. I believe there will not be a new episode until 2026. And at that point, we have a pretty aggressive investigation coming out. This next one will be by Brandon Whiting in the new year to kick us off in 2026. We'll be back in the new year. Until then, be well, stay safe, and stay informed.